I'm sure you've heard the news. Something happened in the West Philippine Sea that changed everything. On August 26, 2025, the world expected another day of Chinese Coast Guard vessels bullying Filipino fishing boats. But this day was different. The Philippine Navy, long seen as the underdog, made a move no one saw coming. They didn't just stand their ground, they drew a new line in the sea. The BRP Andres Bonifacio, a ship with its own storied past, refused to back down. This wasn't just about one ship or one shoal, it was a declaration. The Philippines would no longer be a passive observer in its own backyard. The world was about to witness a masterclass in asymmetric strategy. What followed wasn't war, but defiance. A maneuver so precise it left the Chinese command momentarily paralyzed. For years, China set the rules, but the Philippine Navy flipped the script. Using local knowledge and agility, they turned China's overwhelming strength into a liability. The incident, now called Operation Sentinel Stand, wasn't about firing a shot, it was about proving a point. Courage and ingenuity triumphed over brute force. Filipino sailors knew the risks, staring down a superpower that rarely tolerates challenges. Yet, they executed their mission with professionalism, earning quiet admiration from naval strategists worldwide. The message was sent and received. The West Philippine Sea is not China's lake. This was a moment of stunning clarity. The world took notice. The Philippines had just changed the rules of engagement. The balance of power in the region would never be the same. The shot had been heard across the South China Sea. Where is the West Philippine Sea? And why does it matter? It's the Philippine government's name for the eastern South China Sea, within its exclusive economic zone, backed by the 2016 Hague Tribunal ruling. This isn't just about territory, it's the lifeblood for Filipino communities, a source of food, history, and hope. Beneath the waves lie vast reserves of oil and gas, key to the nation's future. Control here means economic independence and security, but it's also one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. Trillions in trade pass through every year. Whoever controls these waters holds sway over the global economy. China's sweeping 9-line claim overlaps with the Philippines and other neighbors. Beijing enforces it with a cabbage strategy, surrounding contested areas with ships, building artificial islands, and militarizing reefs. For the Philippines, this is existential. Losing the sea means losing resources, sovereignty, and identity. This is a high-stakes chess match where every move is scrutinized and the risk of miscalculation is immense. The world is watching because what happens here sets a precedent for how powerful nations treat their smaller neighbors. The stakes could not be higher. What did the Philippine Navy actually do? Their mission: resupply the BRP Sierra Madre, a grounded ship serving as a marine outpost on Ayungin Shoal. For years, these missions faced Chinese harassment, blockades, water cannons, humiliation. This time the plan was different. Under cover of a tropical depression, two small, fast supply craft slipped through, using local knowledge to evade detection. Meanwhile, the BRP Andres Bonifacio acted as a decoy, drawing Chinese ships away with a visible patrol. The Chinese fell for the feint, focusing on the decoy, while the real mission succeeded. The supply boats reached the Sierra Madre, delivered essentials, and left before China realized what happened. By the time the Chinese responded, it was too late. The Philippines had outsmarted a superior force with deception, speed, and local expertise. A stunning victory, without firing a shot. Why was China so shocked? For years, Beijing operated with impunity, expecting predictable Philippine protests and global indifference. They saw the Philippines as weak, manageable, never a real threat. This operation shattered that illusion. China's rigid, centralized command was outmaneuvered by a subtle, multi-pronged plan. The Philippine Navy refused to play the victim, showing discipline and daring Beijing didn't expect. The mission exposed a vulnerability. China's dominance relies on visible force, but is less effective against small, agile tactics. The Philippines proved you don't need carriers to project power, just clever strategy and local knowledge. This forced China to reevaluate its assumptions and exposed its aura of invincibility. Other regional players saw that China could be resisted. The real shock wasn't just the success, it was the boldness to try. The Philippines had punctured China's narrative of inevitable dominance. The game had changed. Beijing's reaction was swift and fierce. At first, silence, then a wave of outrage. China's foreign ministry denounced the Philippines, accusing it of provocation and illegal intrusion. State media issued threats, warning of serious consequences and vowing to step up patrols. On the water, China deployed more warships and escalated aggressive maneuvers around Philippine-held features. Filipino fishing boats faced increased harassment. It was a show of force, a warning. You got lucky once, don't try it again. The risk of escalation spiked. Behind the bluster, Chinese commanders launched an internal review, forced to confront their own strategic blind spots. The operation had rattled Beijing, exposing flaws in their playbook. The Philippines hadn't just resupplied a ship, they'd forced a superpower to question itself. The world saw not just anger, but uncertainty in China's response. The balance of power had shifted, if only for a moment. The world was watching and responded quickly. The United States reaffirmed its defense treaty with the Philippines, warning China against retaliation. Allies like Japan, Australia, and the UK called for de-escalation and respect for international law. Their statements, though measured, signaled support for Manila's right to operate in its own waters. This diplomatic backing amplified the Philippines' actions on the world stage. Southeast Asian neighbors, while publicly cautious, took note. Vietnam and Malaysia saw a new template for resisting Chinese pressure. The operation emboldened defense planners across the region. At the United Nations, the Philippines presented video evidence, framing the mission as a legitimate exercise of sovereign rights. China was put on the defensive, forced to justify its blockade. The Philippines cast itself as the responsible actor, China as the regional bully. The diplomatic victory was as significant as the operational one. The world's balance was shifting. What does this mean for the future? The Philippines has shifted from passive defense to active asymmetric strategy. Expect more creative, unpredictable maneuvers, raising the stakes in the West Philippine Sea. China will adapt, increasing surveillance and deploying more ships, making the region even more volatile. The risk of direct confrontation is now higher. For other Southeast Asian nations, the Philippines' success is both inspiration and a case study. Smaller, faster platforms and well-trained crews can make a difference. We may see more intelligence sharing and coordination among regional claimants. This could force new dialogue, as China realizes intimidation is no longer guaranteed to work. The old rules are gone. A new, unpredictable chapter has begun. The Philippines' bold move may have broken the stalemate. The chessboard has been reset. The ripples from this event reach far beyond Ayungin Shoal. For the US and its allies, it validates the strategy of empowering partners to stand up for themselves. The Philippine mission proves that training, intelligence, and security guarantees can help smaller nations push back without direct US involvement. ASEAN faces new pressure. Maritime states celebrate, but others fear provoking China. This could force a real conversation about collective security, or risk ASEAN's irrelevance. The economic stakes are huge. The South China Sea is vital for global trade. Rising tensions could increase shipping costs and insurance, acting as a hidden tax on the world economy. The operation is a reminder of how quickly a regional dispute can have global consequences. Most importantly, it changes the psychological landscape. The narrative of inevitable Chinese dominance is broken. Smaller states now see they have agency. Determined nations can shape their own destiny. The world is watching and learning. Where do we go from here? The Philippine Navy's actions were an act of national courage, calculated, intelligent, and brave. The sailors, from decoy to blockade runners, showed professionalism and patriotism. They stood on the front line of a global struggle for a rules-based order. The path ahead is perilous. China, embarrassed, will likely double down on intimidation. The challenge for the Philippines and its allies proved this was not a one-off, but the start of a new strategy. This means military modernization, stronger alliances, and national unity. The world must move beyond statements, offering joint patrols, intelligence, and economic support. Every nation has the right to its own waters and resources as defined by law. The alternative is a world where might makes right. This is about more than ships and shoals. It's about the future of international order. The Philippine Navy has given its answer. Will the world stand with them? The future of the West Philippine Sea and the Indo-Pacific may depend on it.